So here are some 80s movies that maybe you probably haven't seen. In no particular order, I'll try to name about 50 with some extras. We'll start out with the film called No Way Out. That's a 1987 film with Gene Hackman and Kevin Costner. If you're into sort of like thriller, spy kind of movies, definitely you should check it out if you haven't seen it. We move on to number 2. The film is called Children of a Lesser God. It's a 1986 film with William Hurt. You should definitely check that film out. We move on to number 3. Excuse me. With Star 80, 1983. It's a film directed by Bob Fosse with Eric Roberts in it. And it's a film about, I guess, obsession and stardom. So check it out. We move on to number 4, which is going to be Rumble Fish. It's a Francis Ford Coppola film from 1983. Definitely, if you have not seen it, you should definitely check it out. We move on to I've mentioned Body Heat before, but if you have not seen it and haven't listened to my other videos, this is again with William Hurt, 1981, and Kathleen Turner. You should check it out. It also introduces Mickey Rourke and a small but very important role in his career. We move on to Drugstore Cowboy, which is a 1989 film with Matt Dillon, and it's directed by Gus Van Sant. Definitely see it. You should check it out. We move on to Frances. This is a 1983 film with Jessica Lange. It has to do with a woman's, I guess, breakdown. She was in film industry, and it's based on a true story. So definitely check it out for Jessica Lange's performance. And we move on. Now we go on to The Hitcher. This is a 1986 film with Rutger Hauer and C. Thomas Howell. If you're a fan of Rutger Hauer, you should definitely see this. And we move on. Back again to another film with Jessica Lange. It's Music Box, 1983. It's a film directed by Costa Gavras. We move on to Brazil, 1985 film by Terry Gilliam. And if you're into fantasy, it's a very visual film, so I highly recommend it. And we move on. I don't even know what number I'm at, but let's go to Once Bitten. It's a 1985 film with Jim Carrey. And I think it's a vampire kind of film, sort of like a comedy. And this was before he was a household name, from what I can tell. Now we move on to Perfect. This is a 1985 film with John Travolta and Jamie Lee Curtis. If you like John Travolta films or Jamie Lee Curtis, Perfect would be a good film to see. Now we move on to Vision Quest. Vision Quest is with Matthew Modine. He plays, I think, a wrestler who has weight issues and the drastic ways he has to keep his weight to, I guess, whatever it is for him to be able to compete. And nice soundtrack, and worth seeing it, Again, that was Vision Quest with Matthew Modine, 1985. Now, let me just pause for a second here. Let me just see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I've given out 13 films. Okay, so we're going to the 14th film. This is a film with Daniel Day-Lewis. It's called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. The Unbearable Lightness of Being is a 1988 film with Daniel Day-Lewis. Pardon the background noise, but this is being done live and, whatever. So, sorry about that. Okay, so we move on. So that was number 14. Number 15 is The Serpent and the Rainbow. I'm trying to figure out what they're saying. But anyway, The Serpent and the Rainbow, that's with Bill Pullman. 1988 film. It's about, I believe it's, wow. It's about it's about a Harvard either researcher or I think it's Harvard if I'm not mistaken, and this scientist goes to, I believe it's Haiti, to look for a particular drug for, I guess, to help when people go in for operations. And I guess it might be based on a true story, but it's definitely worth seeing. It's sort of a little bit of mystery. This is the type of film that you would see in the 80s, so you definitely have to see it. And also you get to see Bill Pullman, and he's very good at this. So we move on to Masquerade, which is a 1988. Meg Tilly is in it. If you're not familiar with Meg Tilly, you should definitely become familiar with her. She's a wonderful actress, very interesting, very unique. And we move on. I'm going to leave it. It's life. We go to The Mosquito Coast with Harrison Ford, which is 1986. This is about I believe, if I'm not mistaken, about a man who just wants to escape, I guess, the city and modern life, and he goes into some remote area. From what I remember, it could be maybe in the Amazon area, but I'm not sure. But definitely check it out. It's with Harrison Ford. So if you like Harrison Ford, you'll like that. And I believe it also features River Phoenix, the brother of Joaquin Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. That's The Mosquito Coast in 1986, Harrison Ford. Now we move on to Mommy Dearest. This is a 1981 film, if I'm not mistaken here, with Faye Dunaway. Definitely check it out. It has to do with the life of Joan. I think it's Joan Crawford, and it's based on loosely based on a book that was written by the daughter that she had adopted in real life. And I guess the book was called Mommy Dearest. And so Faye Dunaway gets to play Joan Crawford, and definitely see it if you're interested in that. That was a 1981 film. Wow. Lady Hawk. Lady Hawk, a 1985 film with Rutger Hauer again, and I believe it has Michelle Pfeiffer in it. Definitely check it out. If you want to see Rutger Hauer or Michelle Pfeiffer in this film. It's called Lady Hawk, 1985. Now we move on to more light. She's Having a Baby, 1988, with Kevin Bacon. Definitely check it out. And we move on. Raising Arizona, it's sort of like a black comedy. This is with Nicolas Cage, 1987. I move on. Here's Jumpin' Jack Flash, 1986, with Whoopi Goldberg. Now we go to 1984 with the film called Starman with Jeff Bridges. And then we move on, and that's about the Starman with Jeff Bridges, 1984. It's about, I guess, an alien that lands on Earth, and he assumes the image of this woman's recently passed on husband. So it's an interesting story. So we move on to The Cotton Club, 1984, Francis Ford Coppola. Definitely check that out. Now we'll do She's Gotta Have It, 1986, a Spike Lee film, one of his earlier films. Definitely you should see it. That's She's Gotta Have It by Spike Lee, and as I mentioned, that was in 1986. Caddyshack, 1980, with Chevy Chase. Should definitely check it out. Revenge of the Nerds, 1984, with Robert Carradine. Spaceballs, that's a Mel Brooks film, 1987. It's I guess his take on Star Wars. So it's called Spaceballs, and I believe John Candy's in it also. Now it's 1987, Spaceballs by Mel Brooks. Now you should check out Mask, 1985. That's with Cher and Eric Stoltz. That deals with, I guess he has a physical problem and disfigurement of some sort due to medical reasons, and definitely you should check it out. It's called Mask, 1985. Now we move to Brewster's Millions. I may have to do this over again, but we'll see. 1985, Brewster's Millions is Richard Pryor. I believe Richard Pryor and I think John Candy is in this. Essentially, basically, the character Richard Pryor inherits all these, I guess, these millions, I guess. But in order for him to keep it, I guess he has to spend it, something to that effect. Well, anyway, you should definitely check it out. 1985 with Richard Pryor and John Candy. Another Richard Pryor film is See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and that's with Gene Wilder. And that's a 1989 film. The Brewster's Millions was 1985. Okay, so we move on to Bird. That's a film directed by Clint Eastwood, 1988. It's about the life of Charlie Parker, his music and what have you. Check it out. Little Shop of Horrors, 1986 with Rick Moranis. Definitely check it out. Musical, and if you haven't seen this version of Little Shop of Horrors, you should definitely check it out. That's 1986. There are other versions, but I recommend this one. Anyway, we move on with The Color of Money. This is a Martin Scorsese film with Tom Cruise, Paul Newman, 1986. Elizabeth Mastrantonio, who was also, is in it. Definitely check it out. Okay. Class, 1983. This is a film with Jacqueline Bisset and Andrew McCarthy. Class of 1983. Class. The film is called Class, and it was done in 1983, and it features Andrew McCarthy and Jacqueline Bisset. Okay, and this is one of Andrew McCarthy's very first films. We move on with Ordinary People, 1980 film with Donald Sutherland, Mary Tyler Moore, Timothy Hutton, and it's basically deals, and I believe this was directed by Robert Redford, and basically the family dynamics here. Definitely worth checking out. You have to see these films that I mentioned. You get a sense of what was happening in the 80s. So now we jump to Labyrinth with David Bowie. That's a 1986 film. Definitely worth checking out with David Bowie. We move on to Throw Mama from the Train. That's a Danny DeVito film. He's in it. He directed this, I believe, in 1987. And definitely check it out. The Lost Boys, 1987. That's with Jason Patric. And it has to deal with vampire. And I think it's Corey Haim is also in this. Definitely worth seeing. You get a sense of that whole era. Uncle Buck, obviously John Candy's in this. 1988, definitely see. Okay, 1984, obviously you have to see Purple Rain with Prince in it. 1984. The Untouchables. That's 1987 with Brian De Palma. It features Robert De Niro, Kevin Costner, Sean Connery. Definitely, you must see this. Again, that's 1987. Now we go to 1987 again. Moonstruck with Cher and Nicolas Cage. A must. Now a little bit of Eddie Murphy here in Beverly Hills Cop, 1984. If you're a big fan of Eddie Murphy and you haven't seen Beverly Hills Cop, definitely see this film that was done in 1984. Obviously, Airplane is a very famous film, 1980. If you have not seen it, definitely check it out. Now we go to Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. That's in 1986, another comedy. Arthur, 1981. That's with Dudley Moore. Definitely another comedy that you should see. Porky's. That's 1981. That was directed by Bob Clark, and it's a classic and definitely must see. Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman, 1982. And it also features Jessica Lange. You should see that. Rain Man, again, Dustin Hoffman. That's 1988. Also has Tom Cruise in it. Definitely check it out. Now, Highlander with Christopher Lambert in 1986. And I will end with The Color Purple, which is with Whoopi Goldberg. It's a Steven Spielberg film. Also has Oprah Winfrey and a bunch of other people. That was 1985 with The Color Purple. That's all I have. I will leave it like this for now. I will double check. Hopefully you apologize for that, but that's life. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I hope I've come up with something that you had not heard of and maybe you will enjoy, but it will get you a sense of what the 80s, the kind of films that were coming out at the time. And I have other films that I mentioned. I won't repeat them here. You should check my playlist and check the movies there. And again, this is not like a top 50. This is not even my favorite. These are just films that are worth checking out to get a little taste of what the 80s was about. I mean, never mind. I mean, the 80s, how can you do the 80s without music, MTV? I mean, music videos. I mean, that also defined that era. Anyway, thank you for listening and have a nice day.